And hello, everybody. Happy
Hello.
Friday.
Happy Friday.
And welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us, I believe from their homes in the Twin Cities, Leslie Rich and Pete Bulger. Yay!
Hey everyone, how are you doing?
Hi.
Yay!
That's right. And we are happy to be here. I'm actually not in Minnesota right now, as I normally am. I'm in Iowa on remote location. And I am enjoying. This has been a week, and I just got out of COVID jail, so I'm feeling really good.
Congratulations.
Hence why I'm in Iowa, living it up. And also, I hadn't been drinking much during that time while I was sick, but I'm back with a dry rosé, and I'm really happy to celebrate with you all and rock it today.
Yeah.
So cheers.
Cheers.
And Tony, what are you drinking today?
Well, it refuses to be spring or warm here in Minnesota, but I've just decided I'm still going to just jump to my summer drink of choice, the gin and tonic for this week. I'm just going to, will the good weather into existence. So cheers.
Excellent. And Leslie, are you drinking anything on this Friday afternoon?
I've got a little throat coat tea going on here.
Oh,
I
all
had
right.
a lot of that going on this past week, so
Yeah.
that stuff
I
works.
think Tony could use this.
I sure could. I'm choosing a different medication today, but
And Pete, are you drinking anything?
I'm rocking the lime liqueur.
Oh yeah, Qua, one of my favorites.
nice. And I got the lime liqueur.
Yeah, excellent. And it looks like Joe's joining us from South Minneapolis with
Hey,
a
Joe.
Summit IPA,
Nice.
and Alan from in the Texas Hill Country with a gin and tonic as well, joining
All right.
Tony.
Cheers, Alan.
And Chris has an Uda Pils, Kolsch style.
Nice.
And Alan compliments your drink choice,
Thanks,
Tony. And then Connie from Richfield,
Hey, Connie.
and looks like we have, we have Mother Banjo, and apparently we also have Daddy Does, Mark from Belfast.
Of course, the reason for this is because Mark from Belfast is always doing what Daddy has to do, right? But what's he drinking? Mark,
Yeah.
you got to tell us what you're drinking, man. It's
Yes.
been a long time, brother.
And Matt from Urbana, hello. And we are so excited to have you all
Yeah.
here. And if you tuned in and you were like, oh, I thought Matt the electrician was on. Well, he is sick. Again, these bugs are going around. But he will be joining us in a future time. But we are so excited that Leslie Rich is joining us with one of his band members from the Rocket Soul Choir, Pete Bulger, drummer extraordinaire. And we're going to dig into an older record today. And the title seems appropriate because this show's all about geeking out about music, and we're going to talk about the 1999 release Geek Love. And but before we do, we want to ask Leslie, who some of you might know, especially you Twin Cities folks or Belfast folks, because Leslie's originally from Belfast. About you might know his music or be familiar with his music, but for those of you who aren't, maybe Leslie, you could give the brief 2-minute bio of where you grew up, how you got into music, and maybe what led to this album in particular.
Oh, perfect. So I'm originally from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I was a solo singer-songwriter, pretty sort of thrashy acoustic guitar playing that causes holes in the guitar and whatnot. And everyone always told me that I should put a band together. And then in 1994, I eventually did put a band together, a 3-piece, but we were staunchly acoustic based. We wanted to rock, but we wanted to stay acoustic because there were a lot of other guitar based bands in Northern Ireland, in Ireland at the time, and we wanted to just we would have disappeared. If we'd been just kind of the same as those, then we would have just disappeared. So the Rocket Soul Choir was around right up until I emigrated in 2004 and moved to Minneapolis. And then the Rocket Soul Choir was really sort of nowhere until we decided to reform. Pete was one of the people that twisted my arm to reform, and our other good friend, our mutual good friend, Jason Wall, joined on bass guitar. And but they told me that I wasn't allowed to be acoustic anymore. I had to be electric. And so the Rocket Soul Choir is going strong. We just released an album during the pandemic, and it's shaping up to be a really busy summer. So that's my deal.
Excellent.
Nice.
And we are so excited to hear the acoustic side of what you do, because even folks who might be familiar with the current version of the Rocket Soul Choir might not have heard this side of you, Leslie. So this is going to be a lot of fun
Mm.
to revisit this record. Again, it came out in 1999, Geek Love. Is there anything, we're going to dig into sort of the recording, the production, and all of that, but is there anything you want to say about this album in particular and kind of how it fits in and where you were at the time?
No, it was. There was a lot of things about this record. The songs we've been playing for quite some time, and I think we actually began recording in '97, early in '97, and it was a struggle just to kind of get the money together to do it. But there was a lot of things about the record and about the production of the record that were because of instrument limitations. The drumming on the record is pretty heavy-handed and very, very rhythmic, but that's because John Steele, the drummer, didn't have any cymbals. so there's a lot of that sort of. There's a very, very thumpy record, and I was always very heavy with my right hand, so it's pretty fast, and so I've changed since then for sure, and it certainly wasn't pop. It was definitely kind of leaning sort of towards sort of more indie, a little punky, and some of its themes as well.
Cool.
But yeah, when it finally came together, though, it's kind of like a lot of people were waiting on it to finally sort of be able to put something on their hi-fi systems.
Was this your first recording then? Had you recorded before this?
I had not. I had, but there was a cassette release called Parents Anonymous. That was just an EP that was released before, but it was just solo. So this was the first sort of once the band came together and we were starting to get a little bit more popular. This was the first recording from the band.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, let's dig in and give it a listen, because I'm ready to rock out with you all. Even if it's acoustic, I'm ready to rock.
Hey, acoustic rocks.
Exactly. That's what we always say here in Back Catalog. You're surrounded by banjo players, by the way. We just want to put that out there. So this first track you selected, Leslie, to feature on the show today is Super Highway. What can you tell us? Is there anything you want to say about the song before we take a listen?
This Super Highway was kind of a little quick backtrack. Was that when I first started to play guitar, when I first started to be a singer-songwriter and play shows, I just played guitar just like everyone else, standard tuning and everything. And then I had the opportunity to open a show by an amazing Irish singer-songwriter called Luca Bloom.
Yeah.
And literally during the sound check, watching him set up, and he was just a solo guy too, he broke me. so I basically went back to the drawing board. I started to use open tunings and I rewrote. I didn't actually even rewrite. I just got rid of everything that went before and started writing brand new songs. And Super Highway was one of the first ones that came together when the band formed. So this was kind of one of the first songs that I'd written for the band in an open tuning. And it's about the internet, man. Knowing the internet now, it was always going to date pretty fast. I mean, number one, we don't even call it the Super Highway anymore. So, so we thought it was super cool. We were really cool back
Cutting
then,
edge,
and so we put a modem, like a dial-up modem. It wasn't called dial-up modem at the time. It was just a modem, right?
Modem, yeah.
Yeah.
Something you could really listen to in the old cyber cafe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And how long it took you to log on in the anticipation of waiting.
Exactly.
It was
Right.
worth something then, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of glad though we are not in the stage for this show anyway, where we have to wait for the
Oh gosh.
dial-up modem.
Right. Oh, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, streaming music, you couldn't even, yeah, it's just not even fathomable.
Yeah.
Well, what a great way to start off this Friday. This is Leslie Rich and the Rocket Soul Choir with Superhighway here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
In a race, no time is wasted. You can run, but you can't run far. Information, minds exploding, feels like an expanding star. You can run, but you can't run far. You can try to feel your way. You can fly on the superhighway. You can sail your only children, sitting there with a spoon up his eyes. I find out stuff is useless, lets you a mind like trash. You can run, but you can't run far. You can try to feel your way. You can fly on the superhighway. I drive so hard, I find I just can't slow down. Information, mind's exploding, I'm gonna drown, I'm gonna drown. You can run, but you can't run far. You can try to feel your way. You can fly on a superhighway. Hold on a minute, you think you could have that long? Do you hear what I'm saying? Is your mind switched back on? You can run, but you can't run far. Mine feels like an exploding star. You can fly, you can fly, you can fly, you can fly. You can run, but you can't run far. You can try to feel your way. Your mind feels like an exploding star. You can try to feel your way. You can fly, 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 you can fly on the superhighway.
All right.
Nice.
Leslie Rich and the Rocket Soul Choir with Superhighway from their 1999 album Geek Love, with all those modems and
Yeah.
internets,
Wow.
interneting, trying to connect. I love it. And I think anyone who lived through that time, remembers that feeling. And
the first time that I went on the internet to search for something, well, number one, well, what am I going to search for? I don't need it. what do I need this for? I don't. And so whatever it was I was searching for, and then of course, it shows you, 100,000 results. It's kind of like, how do I know which one's the right one? I can't figure this out. So it was just too big for me. I just couldn't figure it out.
Well,
I'm there now, but
I'd be curious, like how, like, because you were playing music when this was sort of just starting. So, like, did you feel like when you think back on this time now, was like making music, did it feel just a lot different than it does now, given how much of that has changed?
no, not at that time. I didn't know. I didn't really kind of know what impact it was going to have. We were still getting mad about CDs. We were still mad
That's
that
right. What
CDs
about the
were a
cassette
thing.
tapes?
They're
Yeah.
taking over.
Yeah, and I think people were only starting then to kind of sort of share music, and so people were kind of getting angry about that. But it didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to me at the time that we would end up in a situation like we are today, where streaming is pretty much everyone that works for me at my day job. That's all they do is listen to Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't save music the way I did when I was growing up, or certainly even in '99 when this CD came out.
Well, this might be a good time to mention then that I think you have physical copies still of this album, right?
Actually, I don't think I do.
Oh.
I actually think Pete and I, I think this record is 25 years old, coming up pretty soon, and I have this copy right here. Actually, I didn't
Available
even check
for
to see.
$5,000
Yes,
today.
$1 million.
Yeah, it's not. It's still. It's scratched as well. And then there's another copy that I think Jennifer has, that has a white cover.
Oh.
It's printed right on the inside, but on the outside, it's a white cover. Was it like a misprint? And those are the only two copies that we have. But we do have it available for digital download.
So you can
Yes.
get the high quality files, is what we're getting
Yes,
at.
and it is
Yeah.
linked from we're scrolling his website, leslierishmusic.com. If you go to the merch page, I did see a link to get the digital download. And all right. Daddy has his copy. Mark has his copy. All right.
Mark
It's worth
has his
something.
copy.
There are not too many of them out there. Now, speaking of digital analog, how was this recorded? Were you on tape? Were you recording a tape?
This was early Pro Tools.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he had just recently, so we still had the tape machine actually in the studio, and I feel like we used the tape machine for the drums, but then it was transferred to Pro Tools, and then everything else was Pro Tools.
That was early days. You guys were cutting edge.
Super early days.
Yeah.
And it it could be frustrating because the Mac would crash a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of beach balls.
What were they called? Power Macs or something?
Yeah,
They were called
Power
back then?
PCs.
Power PCs.
And then you'd have to wait for it to render after you do a mix, and then go get
Oh
dinner,
gosh.
and then come back
It
3
was-
hours later and see it's still okay. Got still about an hour to go before we can
was
listen
crazy.
back.
The battle.
There's still actually a lot of outboard, a lot of outboard equipment, kind of dealing with the reverbs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So going in, so basically printing that reverb.
Yeah,
Right,
because
no
all the
plugins.
digital tools were so cold still. Then they hadn't
Oh, gosh,
really
yeah.
figured out how to put the fuzzy edges on things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it sounds
So-
great.
Yeah, it sounds really good. And the other thing I was going to ask, when sort of talking about the cassette, to CD, because 99, yeah, you have both of those things, there were still some cassette tapes, I think, lingering at that
There's a
point.
lot, yeah.
Right. So especially for bands. And so did you have cassette tapes of this album made?
No,
or did you
only
go-
CDs.
Was this like a
Only
big
CDs.
transition then? You're like, oh, this is our CD album.
I mean, the reason that the conversation at the moment is relevant is because when Pete and myself and Jason put the band back together in 2015, and we got to the point where, we want to record this, we all sort of agreed, well, I'd missed the opportunity to have a record And so we knew that the next thing that we were going to record was definitely going to be a vinyl record. That affected that, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you just joined us for the back catalog listening party, this is what we do. We get together and listen to music and geek out about it. And today we're geeking out with Leslie Rich and Pete Bolger of Leslie Rich and the Rocket Soul Choir to talk about the 1999 album, Geek Love. If you have questions or comments, throw them in there. Let us know where you're tuned in from. And it looks like Valerie is in the campground near Dubuque.
Oh gosh.
In Iowa, where
All right.
I am today, and rocking the LaCroix Fuzzy Water as well. And yeah, I love that. Mark likes to blast it in his car with no one hearing me singing along. You know, that's the beauty of back catalog, is that we're the only ones with mics. So you can sing along, dance along as much as you want today. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, Joni. Left
Joni.
Spotify. All she needs is back catalog, right?
That's right. Just buy the physical CDs or the high res digital, and you're
You're good to go. Well, so this next track that you picked to listen to today, Leslie, is Geek Love, the title track.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to ask, is this inspired at all by the novel Geek Love?
It is absolutely one of my all-time favorite novels. And in fact, before the show, I was looking on the bookshelves to see if I could find it, but I've given it away again.
Again?
It's one of those ones that I buy and then give it away. And it took me, it was, oh my gosh, Rick McCulloch has just joined us. Rick McCulloch played bass guitar on the record.
Right.
All right. So
Sorry, Rick, is it not bedtime for you, sir?
Yeah, it's
Do you not
late
need
there.
to-
You know, Rick, if you feel free to pop in with any commentary or corrections if Leslie Rich's memory is, not accurate. So,
Yeah.
Embarrassing stories.
yes,
You know.
definitely.
So Geek Love was one of those books. Back then, music and books I would buy based on what it looked like. There's a lot of things that I bought that affected my life that based on what the cover was. And the cover at the time of Geek Love was very pink and had a picture of Ophelia, the main character in the book, on the front. And it just grabbed my attention. But I could not get that book started. I would read a bit of it. Probably 4 times I tried to start that novel. And I eventually got the whole way through it, and it blew me away. That the main thing about the book is, which ties into some of the stuff that still I preach, is that the people in the book, because they had physical deformities or physical attributes, basically they would never have to rely on being anything other than themselves to get through in life. And I just kind of thought that was brilliant. Everyone is unique, and everyone just has to be themselves, and they'll be very successful in life. And so that's kind of partially what the book was about. And it was a novel by Catherine Dunn. And I've read other things by Catherine Dunn, and for some reason, they just don't punch you the way Geek Love does. So the song is one of those songs that literally took 5 minutes to write, because I'm not a crafter. I'm not crafting a lot of words. I'm not sitting down to change a lot of words, or this needs to be different, that needs to be different. It all sort of just comes out of me and I just end up leaving it the way it is. And so even though it's a very close approximation of what's happening in the book, it just came out that way.
Excellent. Well, let's give it a listen. This is Leslie Rich, Geek Love, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Just can't help yourself from standing there. You can't take your eyes away. Just have to look at me in your mortified way. Am I so strange? You don't believe me. Am I so strange? You feel hurt. Am I so strange? down. Those non-believers who've all gone home, and I'm still here, hanging around, and I'm not moving home, and I'm not moving home. There is a fire that never goes on fire, independent boy that never gets stung, Siamese twins that play piano, and everyone loves him to sing their song. Am I so strange? You don't believe in me. Am I so strange? You feel hurt. Am I so strange? You feel pity. Am I so strange? You feel hurt. You feel hurt. You feel hurt.
All right. Leslie Rich and the Rocket Soul Choir with Geek Love, the title track to the album we are revisiting today on the back catalog listening party. It came out in 1999, and yeah, if you're more familiar with Leslie Rich's current material, it's fun to hear these kind of more acoustic-driven songs. And Pete Bolger, one of the current drummer with Leslie Rich and the Rocket Soul Choir, joining us today. But he is not on this record. So, but if Pete, do you have any insights into any of the percussive elements of this album? Because it's pretty percussive, even when you don't hear much of the drums.
The drums on the last song were fantastic. No, honestly, I really dig John Steele's vibe throughout, the songs he plays on this. He did find some cymbals apparently for the first song.
Yeah, I did hear there was a cymbal.
Yeah.
I think there was one in there. I heard one.
And it had, I just love the heavy 90s groove. I mean, that last song, you could hear in some indie comedy starring Janine Garofalo and somebody, and it would fit and it was great. And honestly, Super Highway, I think, was one of the songs because I knew who Leslie was, and I knew I was in a band with Jason Wall at the time, and we played some shows with his other band, Leslie's skiffle band at the time, A Little of the Ready, and I'd heard Super Highway and some of these songs. I'm like, man, I told Jason, he's like, if he ever wants to do his rock and roll stuff again, please call me. Because it would be fantastic. It's just what I wanted to do. So I was just thrilled. A few years later, when I just get a message out of the blue from Les saying, "Hey, did Jay talk to you yet?" No, but what's going on?
So there is so much in there that I want to make sure doesn't go untalked about. First of all, Leslie, I did not know. I knew you've done other styles of music. Like I know you've done some other kind of Celtic music and other things like that.
Yeah.
I did not know you ever had a skiffle band. How did I not know this?
They were they didn't last too long. They were great though. Yeah, I mean that beat just kind of just keeps pushing forward, and so we actually were still playing a lot of the sort of Celtic bars and things because some of the stuff that we did was very sort of Celtic, sort of a little sort of Celtic vibe. Celtic skiffle is probably a better way to describe it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that band a lot.
And how would you describe skiffle for folks who haven't heard it? Because it's kind of it's not something that everyone kind of knows about.
That's sort of Pete's language, but that basically that rolling beat. Yeah.
It's like train tracks, but not country.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Just kind of that chicka kind of
strummy, 4 on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, really, and more rock and roll and country, and really suited very well with Leslie's rhythmic, busy, heavy right hand, which is a very, very fun thing to play drums along with, actually. So,
and I was actually going to ask about the guitar too, because on both of the tracks we heard has that kind of that very percussive guitar playing, very driving thing, which I hear in a lot of Irish guitar players. And so I want to know, is this something that that just because a lot of folks are playing that way or because of the traditional elements that maybe seep in, or is this, or are all Irish guitar players, they're like, this is just how we do it?
I think for me, one of the things that I was always struggling with as a solo performer was just the volume in the bar. So, when you come on as an acoustic player, people are typically already, starting other conversations, and so sometimes the volume in the bar was quite high, and so I was basically always sort of fighting against that. So that's part of it. And traditionally, certainly in Irish music and Celtic music, when you're playing in a bar, it's typically unamplified.
Mhm.
So that's probably another reason, just to kind of help with that rhythm.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
it looks like Rick, again, the person who played bass on this record, who's tuning in from Cork.
Cork.
Um,
hmm
he says used to call it acoustic punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because we had that sort of that little edge to it, as in our minds. Certainly, that's the way we sort of approached it. And with John's kind of big, heavy sort of rhythm playing, that's kind of where it came from, for sure.
There's just a ton of energy there, just a ton of energy. And
The other interesting
Go ahead.
The other interesting thing about that track, Anthony, is that the electric guitar that you hear in the background, I had the idea of that from a band called American Music Club. Mark Eitzel's one of my big sort of influences too. And they had a song called "The Dead Part of You," and it was acoustic guitar, but then this sort of distortion underneath it. So that's why we did it that way, but I didn't own an amp. So the electric guitar is actually through a Line 6 pod, one of the old kidney-shaped sort of guitar modeling things. Of course, that you wouldn't know the difference nowadays, but back then it was a little weak.
Well, that actually gets at what I was about to ask, which was that I'm hearing some like '90s alternative. I remember there's definitely all kinds of different influences coming in. So I'm glad you shared that band. But are there other bands that you were kind of really into at the time? Like what were you listening to back then when you were writing these tracks?
I was listening to a lot of stuff. One of the things that my ear will always catch is acoustic music, and typically when it's not in just like a singer-songwriter setting, when it's in something that's a little bit different. So I always loved the rock songs that had that kind of had acoustic guitar as sort of the main sort of instrumentation. At the time I was listening to American Music Club, I was listening to Luca Bloom. Another band that was out around that time was a band called The Unbelievable Truth, the brother of Tom York from Radiohead, and it was the same setup as we had. It was bass, drums, and acoustic guitar, multiple vocals. So yeah, and then a lot of the bands sort of coming out of Ireland. David Gray was another guy that was very heavy-handed. He's a lot more sort of mellow nowadays, but at the time he was basically going through the same things I was going through, playing in bars where he needed some extra volume, and so he came across it sort of almost over energetic a lot of times, for sure. I'd see that Joe has asked about Horselips. Horselips certainly when I was at school was a thing, but I never owned any of their vinyl, actually, Horselips. And that was very, very, very Celtic, even though it was rock music.
Well, it looks like also Matt Winters said next back catalog listening party skiffle band album. So if you guys have, if anyone has requests from skiffle bands,
Yep,
or
any
maybe,
skiffle bands out there, let us know.
hit us up because we're always looking to expand the back catalog here, and definitely keep those questions and comments coming, especially Rick, the bass player on this album. We'd love to hear any war stories or secrets from the studio that Leslie doesn't want to share with us. So
I can't remember, so it'll be news to me.
that sounds about right. And one thing you mentioned, Leslie, is that you are very visual, and that you were drawn to Geek Love initially from the cover, and then you got, of course, drawn in by the beautiful story. But the cover art on this, tell us a little bit about, because I know you care about such things. So what inspired this art?
This is so that was that set. I took a selfie sort of back then. I just got a brand new camera that my mom had bought me, and I was trying to figure stuff out and ended up taking a picture of myself, which then ended up being on there.
That's the original, right? Yeah.
So Leslie invented selfies. That is the takeaway.
We had to
I
share
miss-
this.
All right.
Look at that.
I miss that hair, man.
Oh,
my
man,
gosh.
baby Leslie, so cute.
How does this thing work? Is that what's going through your head right there?
Yeah. So that was what I ended up using on the as the cover, and I kind of had this sort of idea of sort of the digital, the way the dots sort of lined up. There's a lot of sort of digital references on the inside. And of course, that all stems from, superhighway and the modem and whatever. And for some reason, the studio at home that I had was that sort of lime green on the walls. And so it made its way into this. A friend of mine, a very close friend of mine called James Elliott, who I was in another band with, an indie band with, actually did the cover of this. He's a graphic designer.
Very nice.
Yeah.
By the way, Rick chimed in with a few comments I want to make sure don't get overlooked. One was that he mixed a Horse Lips album, which is cool. So that's like a cool little tie-in, Joe, that you'll appreciate. And then he also said, don't know which song it was, but when I did my first double track backing vocals on the album, Leslie said over the talkback that I sounded like Toto. So I don't know which song that was, but
I actually think that was a song called "Not Your Ghost,"
which we're gonna listen to, I think, today. So hopefully,
yeah. Rick actually, we've obviously been talking about him for the last kind of half hour as the bass player on this album, but he also played keyboards on this. He played some amazing organ and the backing vocals as well. Richard had we didn't have to communicate about where the vocals needed to be. I just sang and he just slotted right in. Yeah, it was
Nice.
That was really cool for me.
excellent. Excellent. Well, let's get to the next song so that we can get to the song where he sounds like Toto.
Yes.
So, well, the next track you picked to feature is "The Air Is Just a Breeze." Is there anything you want to say about it before we dive in?
So this is the one that hit the radio pretty hard. So this was I have a friend still back in Belfast who plays keyboards, plays piano. And he and I, because of the way the rhythm is in this song, he came up with a really cool piano part to it, and it ended up driving the whole song. So it's acoustic guitar and piano and then just vocal. And for some reason, that was just the song that sort of connected with the radio audience. So this was kind of the one of the main songs that sort of got us noticed and got people to turn up to shows. I do love this, but earlier on today, and you've seen me kind of turn around to the guitar while some of these songs are on. How the heck did I ever sing this song? It's in the key of C. There's no way I could get up there anymore. If we're ever gonna play this song or re-record this album for its 25th anniversary, I'm gonna have to change the key because I can't sing it up there anymore.
It
I don't
happens.
know what I did.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's enjoy it now.
Yeah, we're gonna everybody try to sing along at home. We'll see just how high
Me.
that C
Your warm-up.
is. This is Leslie Rich. The Air Is Just a Breeze here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Swallowing some conversations coming from the telephone. I was spitting down on my face some silence of my own. I was whistling to Westman 1,000 miles apart. Home from home, just wondering where singing, and I was wondering at its soul. Spent its whole life traveling, hang around just to go. Was whistling to no one, and no one hears a word. Standing solid ground, just like other worlds. The sea has no barrier, the air is just a breeze. And to go with the wind in my sails, the air is just a breeze. And to break my heart over and over again, your love is just a tease, the air is just a breeze. Your hair cascades like a set of broken strings. But you were everywhere and everywhere I love me, where I breathe. You can only see me and ask you not to leave me. Take my heart and tease me. The air is just a breeze. The air is just a breeze. The sea has no barrier. The air is just a breeze. Go with the wind in my sails. The air is just a breeze. And to break my heart over and over again, it's just a breeze. And the sea has no barrier. The air is just a breeze. And to go with the wind in my sails. The air is just a breeze. And to go with the wind in my sails. The air is just a breeze.
All right. Yeah. Oh man.
I got up, and then just remembered that bit at the end was going to come up, and I still have I played my acoustic guitar with a bow, and I still have the bow. And I was
So
going,
that was
"Oh,
at
I
the end
still
of the
have it."
song? That was at the end of the
Yeah,
song? I was
Very
wondering what
cool.
was making that noise. That's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, again, if you just tuned into Back Catalog Listening Party today, we're talking with Leslie Rich and Pete Bolger from the Rocket Soul Choir about this album that came out in 1999, Geek Love, and that song was The Air is Just a Breeze. And Leslie, you mentioned that this song did a lot for you on the radio. That was, the late
Yeah.
90s were a time where if you had like a hit on the radio, even on if it was on a local or regional level, it really made a big difference in terms of like touring and getting
Yeah.
gigs. And I hear that like this album kind of launched a bit of a tour for you at the time.
We ended up in Scandinavia based off of this album, and the person. Well, there was a couple of things actually happened from this album. Well, yeah, there's the Tavastia Club in Helsinki, and then this is in Turku in Finland. That show was jam packed. It was the first time we ever played a sold out show, and the club held about maybe 500 people, and we were just blown away. The funny story about Turku. Typically, a lot of people wanted to meet us and take us out afterwards. For some reason, in Scandinavia, everybody wants you to go for a sauna after the show. And there's no way I was getting into a sauna with these strange people. But one group of people after that particular show said to us, "We're going to a club afterwards. You guys have got to come to the club." And so we said, "Okay, well, I'll go to the club." And we went, and somebody needed to go to the bathroom. So I went in the front door, and somebody said, "Well, I'm going to run to the bathroom first." And I said, "Okay." And I'm standing, leaning against the wall, just waiting on them to come out of the bathroom again. And people are coming in through the door and staring at me and pointing at, but going on their way, but staring at me really funny. And when my friend came out of the bathroom and looked at the wall, I'm leaning up against the wall, and there's a huge poster of me that said Leslie Rich. And it was just kind of like, oh, now I feel a little funny. Yeah, that song definitely changed who would come to shows. and how many people were coming to shows and what sort of shows that we were getting. The Duke of York was one of the places that we played a lot in Belfast, and it was getting increasingly more packed when we would play there, and that was a great thing. That made us feel pretty good.
And so when you moved to the States, did you did it feel like you had to kind of start all over again, or were you able to leverage
yes.
any of the success that you had in Ireland and Europe?
No, not at all. I had to start brand new again. Yeah, starting from the beginning.
Well, we are glad that you are continuing music. And for
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, Leslie Rich and the Rocket Soul Choir put out a great record last year, 2 years ago. I don't even know anymore what time has happened, but called The Butcher Boy, which is great. And all of your albums are available on your website, including the high-res files of this album. And I do want to mention that, again, hearing everything we feature on this show always sounds better from our end than what you're hearing on yours, because it goes through lots of talk about the interwebs that we talked about on the superhighway. It does not sound the same when it comes out the other end after the sausage has been made. That's all I gotta say. So you want to hear the true files, and yeah, right there. LeslieRichMusic.com. Yeah. And you are starting to perform out again. In fact, I saw you in the real world, both of you, Leslie and Pete, after I got out of COVID jail. I was at the Turf Club in St. Paul for an Emmylou Harris, Loretta Lynn tribute, and I saw you both in real life, and we couldn't remember the last time that had happened. So, but you're getting out to play, so this is exciting. So for those of you who are lucky enough to live in Minnesota, where Leslie and Pete are based, bunch of shows coming up. I think Lupine Brewery and 331 Club with Ben Cookfeld.
331, yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Lupine, Charlie's up in Stillwater. Yeah.
Excellent.
And the Dubliner, we're playing the Dublin Irish. It was a great local venue. Used to be called the Ace Bar. We're playing the Dubliner at the end of May.
I love the
I'm
Dubliner.
excited to be back there. I love it too.
Yeah.
I used to service back in high school. Whoops. Did I say
Yeah.
that? When it was the Ace Box.
But it was different management back then, so no one's going to get in trouble.
Yep.
Excellent. And then Rick chimed in with, within a week of our last Duke of York gig in that lineup, you moved to Minnesota, John to Japan, and me to Dublin. So this
That's
kind
right.
of was kind of an end of an era a little bit.
Yeah, it was. John actually became a writer and has a great series of detective novels that I adore. Yeah, I didn't know he was a writer at the time, but there you are. Yeah. So it felt like a natural sort of, the band didn't break up.
Mm-hmm.
We just naturally all went different ways. And Rick is just kind of making it sound like he just kind of moved to Dublin. But Rick, did you not? You moved to Windmill Lane, right? You moved because you were working at Windmill Lane, which is where all of the big artists in Ireland recorded, including, of course, U2. If that's the wrong story, Rick, don't say anything because it sounds super cool right now.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me whatever the truth is of that. I can't remember. Yeah, there you are.
Yep.
You got it.
He's gonna just go with that.
It was so we all did different things. John actually didn't come back from Japan for, I don't know, about 10 years. And of course I'm not back from Minnesota yet. I'm still here. So.
Which we selfishly
we'd
are
like to
very
keep
happy
you
about,
here. Yeah.
as long as possible. But we want to make sure we get in at least one more song, because this came up when we were talking about Rick's backing vocals on this song, Not Your Ghost. So let's try and squeeze in this one before we have to take off here. And is there anything you want to say about Not Your Ghost?
This it felt huge to me. Rick played organ on this. Gary Aiken, who was the producer of the record, played some strings on this, all sampled stuff, and it just felt really, really, really big. It's one of those songs that doesn't really have the chorus until you get to the end. And one of the radio interviews that I did when we were on tour in Scandinavia, was why I waited so long for the chorus in this song. I don't know, or for the hook. Why does the hook take so long to come in? But I don't know. It's just written the way it was written. This is another one of the early ones. This is along with Super Highway. It was one of the first handful of tunes I wrote when I started to write in open tunings. So yeah, I love this track a lot, actually. This should be revived, I think.
All right, you heard it. Yep, thumbs up from Pete. Let's give it a listen. This is Leslie Rich, Not Your Ghost, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Feel flat in my face. This is the 25th time I fell out of bed. My place, not in the home, but in the back of my head. This is not the kind of place I'd like to be. I believe my reaction well founded. Didn't remember facts laid on the table last night. I was willing and able to put it all right. We were back in my face and said good night. I believe my reaction founded, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I'd thought I'd spend a little less money on satin and books, if I'd bought a few little creams to enhance my looks, I believe my reaction is well founded. Didn't run enough facts laid on the table last night. I was willing and able to put it all right. Threw it back in my face and said good night. I believe my reaction is well founded, yeah.
Leslie Rich and the Rocket Soul Choir with Not Your Ghost. And, yeah, for like, I feel like this is a lesson for folks who think you need to put like everything on a track just because you can in a studio. It's like, that's, because that rocked and there wasn't like that many things going on it. It was just like the power of the song itself, and then the driving guitar and the drums. And I know when Rick said, what a fill, Pete was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So Pete, again, we want to clarify, Pete was not the drummer on this album, but he's the current drummer in Leslie's band. And Pete, what do you have to say about the drums on that? Because I think they're pretty awesome.
It's all great. I mean, I really dig the style. It really fits with what's going on. Leslie's an interesting cat to play with because he's very rhythmic. So finding where you counter that and where you go along with it and where you create space is really a fun challenge. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to play with him, aside from his songwriting and his voice, obviously, and the fact that he's just a great person. But
hey, I am a great person.
You are a great person.
Oh, the love. Fan love.
But no,
Finally validated.
it was out of my wheelhouse,
Geek
but I
love.
really liked it, and it's just fun. So if we do re-record these for a 25th anniversary, big shoes to fill.
Love
But-
that song.
I think people would dig it, man. A lot of people were saying how much they appreciated it. Mark, Geek Love is one of his favorite albums of all time. Joey
Thanks, Mark.
piped in saying beautiful album. Lots of great reactions throughout this, and I would definitely want to make sure I thank all of you who are out there listening and chiming in. That makes it so much fun for us too, especially when there's members of the band overseas chiming
Yeah.
in. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you all so much
Nice.
for joining us, this transatlantic show. And again, I want to just echo that Leslie has such a great catalog of music that spans so many different kind of styles and vibes. And I would just recommend that you all check it out at leslierichmusic.com. And if you get a chance to see him play live, do it.
Yes.
Make it happen. And if you can't make it to see him because he stays staying a little closer to home in Minnesota, then you can throw something in his Venmo tip jar so that he can, maybe come to where you are at. So
Yeah, maybe in the notes, when you put like $1,000 in his tip jar, just
come to my
put
house.
your address, put your address next to that,
and
and
then he
I
might
bet you
just show up.
he might just come on down.
Yeah, you never know. And
Right.
and Rick says, can I also say how much I love The Butcher Boy? Again, that's the latest Leslie Rich record, and I agree. It's really an amazing record of songs.
Thanks,
It's
man.
like it's an album for now. It's all about like rockin' songs about like hard times that make you feel good. I don't know. That's my pitch.
I like it.
And that's why you're a publicist, right?
Well, and a fan. So, but yeah, check it out. And this is the time of the show where we want to thank you for joining us, because this is what this show is all about. It's about geeking out about music, reconnecting with musicians, reconnecting the musicians with their former bandmates, and of course, to new music fans, and just listening to music together and enjoying it. And if you all liked the show, then like it on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, send more bots to Leslie Rich, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because we do this every Friday. Sadly, not with Leslie and Pete every Friday, but with other great musicians. And I'm trying to remember who's next week. Maybe Peter Mulvey, possibly, who's amazing if you don't know him. Really great songwriter. So, but you can check that out. And Leslie and Pete, thank you for spending your Friday with us.
thank you.
Especially,
Thank you.
I bet this time yesterday you might not have known you were going to be on this. So we really appreciate you coming
For
in.
those who are tuning in, we had a cancellation last night for our guest, and
'Cause
Leslie
he's
and
sick,
Pete were
yeah.
so generous to show up last minute. So really want to thank you guys again for being there for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
And for those of you who are members of our Patreon, our top tier patrons, supporters of the show, and these are the folks that keep this show have kept the show going through 107 episodes now. And this is why we keep doing it, because these folks keep stepping up to support it. Penny, Anna, Linda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead Pick and Parlor, who services my banjo and probably Tony's. Severin, Lynn, Craig, Jake, Mary, and many tracks. These are the folks that keep the show going. And
Thank you.
one of the things we offer to our top tier patrons is special after parties. And today is one of those days. So Leslie and Peter are going to hang out with us for a little bit and maybe get some bonus music. So if you want to get in on stuff like that and support the show, you can do that. We also have for our top level of patrons coming up, we have a special live stream concert with Ellis Delaney and the OK Factor, which is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So you can check that out. But mainly, just thanks for being here. And if you like the show, share it with friends, because that's what this is all about: sharing great music and
this is
celebrating
it's
great
a
people.
lot, the lost art of listening together, and it's such a beautiful thing, and my favorite hour every week. And thanks to folks like you, Leslie and Pete, for sharing your art with us. This is great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also get out there and hear live music and support it, because that's one of the great things happening now. And I forgot to ask you, Tony, you saw Robbie Folks, one of our past guests last week. Was it awesome?
Last night, yeah, it was.
Last
it
night,
was
yeah.
fantastic. Yep, I've still got a little bit of a buzz
Hello?
going from. Yeah, he's just such an amazing performer, and he
He's
says
so
hello.
good live.
Yeah, his banter
Yeah.
is as good as his songwriting,
God,
which is
he's
saying-
hilarious.
Yeah, so but thanks everybody for being here. Like Ellen said, subscribe to the channel so we can see you again next week and in the weeks ahead. And for those of you who are part of our Patreon communities, click that Zoom link. We're going to go hang out. There's another song that we have queued up from Leslie from this record that we're going to listen to. And for everybody else, we'll see you next week here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Cheers.
Cheers.